Did I say that out loud?
Welcome to Did I Say That Out Loud, a podcast where Stu Eddins and Mariah Tang reflect on agency life and answer questions from our higher ed and healthcare clients about the latest in digital marketing, content, and SEO. All right, Stu and I are so tickled today because we have a very special guest, Marion Abrams. She is the Director of Content at Dartmouth Health. She's a multimedia content expert with skills ranging from creating documentaries to launching successful audio, video, and social content across major networks, including the Spartan Race podcast, which we're going to touch on just briefly. She's joining us today to talk about video marketing, why it matters, how to scale, and how impactful it can be for healthcare audiences. So thanks for joining us, Marion.
You bet. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, let's just start right at the spot that I'm super interested in. Tell me a little bit about your background with Spartan Race podcast. I've got to hear this story.
Well, I'm pretty unusual for a director of content because I think most directors of content come either from a writing background or from a journalism background. And I really come from a video production background. That's the language I speak. And so from that basis, that skill set, then I learned sort of all the other stuff about content strategy and SEO. But I think of it more inclusively of video and all the other channels. So the Spartan, we called it Spartan Up at the time. I think it's changed its name since I left to The Hard Way. It was an amazing experience. Again, at the time so when I started working in this kind of work, I guess, I would have clients hire me to make videos and they didn't know what to do with them and they weren't deploying them right. And that's when, however many years ago, 20 plus, I started saying, okay, I need to start learning all about content strategy and the marketing sides of things in order to help them. And so I had just kind of started that journey and I connected with Joe DeSena, who is the founder and CEO of Spartan Race. And I had done some really fun video series. We had a guy named Chris Davis who came and lived on Joe's farm and lost a couple 100 pounds over a 2-month period. We did a weekly update. And we had this guy, Miguel Medina, who was a Spartan athlete who lived in the woods and tried to build a cabin. And so we had done a bunch of these sort of like serialized short series. And Joe was starting to sell his first book. And he started to do a lot of research about what was working. And he saw that the things that were getting him the most attention for his book were podcasts. And so being a seat of the pants kind of guy, he said, let's start a podcast. And because my background was video from day one, we made the podcast a video podcast. So we published it on YouTube as well as iTunes and all the other audio channels from the very beginning. And it was an amazing ride. I learned a ton. We did that for 8 years. And the first 6 or 7, we did all the interviews in person. So it was like pretty chaotic, pretty exciting. And not only did I learn a ton about content and content strategy, but also self-development and wellness and health and endurance sports. So it was a pretty fun ride.
That's amazing. That's going to be my next career, living in the woods and having somebody make a documentary about me. I love that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if you saw, I posted something on LinkedIn a couple of days ago about sort of how people pitch podcasts and how they're not always so scrupulous about it. But we were in early. We had a lot of resources, not in terms of production, but in terms of reach, because we were able to meet a lot of well-known people and get them on the show. And so we were able to grow a really big and valuable following for that project.
Yeah, that foresight to have the video component with it. I mean, it had to have just been so exciting over the last couple of years as you see all these podcasters rolling out the video with their own pieces.
It's been really interesting. I mean, I am a pretty, I would say, a risky hire for my boss, and I'm really glad she took that risk. I like to think it's paying off for her, but I was not a traditional pick for the role. As I said, most content strategy people come from a writing background. And I had really never worked in a corporate environment. I had always worked in either startup or freelance or just very like kind of chaotic and fast-paced environments. So I have learned a ton. working in healthcare. But what I have found is there's actually quite a lot of common ground. And so one of the things that we've had a lot of success with in our first couple of years is looking at what are the topics that the sort of wellness gurus are out there talking about, and how can we address those, because we know people want those answers and we know they're interested in them. How can we address those from a really medically accurate and more factual and reliable basis? And that's worked pretty well, even in our editorial, what we call our editorial content, what a lot of people call blog content. And we've seen huge increases in traffic when a lot of people are seeing decreases because of AI and all that. So at least, knock on wood, that sort of strategy has been working well. I think the other thing that, let me know if I'm talking too much. I never know how long to answer, but
Go, my friend.
the other thing about coming from a YouTube background is YouTube is so valuable in the level of data it gives you. And so you can see retention rates. You can see literally when people stop watching. You can see the click-through rate. So separating whether the title and the image are grabby enough from whether the video is good enough, and whether the hook in the video is good enough to pull people in, and then whether the content is good enough to keep them in. And you can really see a lot of that data. And what I found is my experience in editing video and my background in really looking at all the YouTube data has made me, I think, a much better partner for my writers, because the same principles apply, right? How do we speak to people about what they're looking to hear? How do we keep them interested the whole time? How do we grab their attention? All of those things. And YouTube particularly is like a mix of sort of a cross between a search platform and a social platform. So I think it's actually been really helpful for me to bring the video knowledge into some of the other content we create.
Absolutely. Stu looks like he has a
Yeah,
question.
I've got a dozen questions, and they're just all over the map.
Great.
But that's the fun of this. We get to edit and put things in order. The one thing that I'm curious about, you've made a transition from video into a space that encompasses not just video, but the written word and audio and anything else as far as content is concerned. Do you find you still start out when you're looking and assessing the content in front of you, blocking it out as though it were a video script in a shooting order?
It's a good question. I'm really lucky that my writers for what we call editorial content, what a lot of people call blog content, they're really good. And so they, we'll talk about the angle, and they will really structure the article. And then I can come in and I might say, like usually I say, the intro is too long, move this part to the top, simplify this part, speed this part up. Those are kind of things people are sick of hearing me say on my team. But for the writing, I try to be, I try not to micromanage up front. I try to just give them helpful feedback, because I'm very fortunate that I have some really good experienced writers.
Okay. And kind of following along with that, the kind of the continuity between the visual media that is video and then the written word that's going to be a blog post or something. Do you find that a lot of what you shoot for video can also translate well into a blog written piece for use elsewhere? Is it an easy transition for you to make, or do you find you have to rewrite from the top down?
So we wouldn't just transcribe it, I would say, right? But so first of all, I will say we have not been able to do as much video production as I would have liked. We really were restructuring the whole content team when I arrived. So, and becoming a system versus a single entity of multiple hospitals. So there's just been a lot of kind of culture change and relationship building and education that has been happening. And I would say, we've done lots of video production and we have more video on all of our channels, but it's nowhere near what I'd like it to be. So in terms of, in answering your question, when we design, when we design something specifically for that purpose, which we occasionally get the opportunity to do,
Mhm.
then it pretty well works. And so we would, for example, we have a product we've named our video FAQ engine, and so we start with finding a good partner in one of our not only from an on-camera person but also from our marketing team. And then we'll do some research, and we'll do a lot of SEO research and also a lot of TubeBuddy, which is kind of an SEO tool for YouTube, and looking at Google Trends and all the tools we have available to get as many clues as we can into, what are the questions on that topic that people have. And so, next week we're going to be shooting one of these on menopause. And so we do lots of research to find the best questions, and then we meet with the SME and make sure that those align with their priorities and they feel comfortable with those questions. Obviously, I try to remind my team all the time, like every piece of the puzzle is just one piece of the puzzle. So we look at a lot of data, but that doesn't mean you ignore your gut instincts and what your SME says and all those things, right? They're all pieces of the puzzle. So we start with that, and then we'll shoot a video where we answer all of those questions. And from that, we'll make one long video, which is designed really for YouTube. We'll make a series of short videos, which are designed to be interspersed in an article. So they would be embedded in an article on a topic.
Mhm.
So for example, we did one on knee replacement, and you'll recognize my YouTube background when you hear the title, which is what orthopedic surgeons really do. We threw the word "really" in there for
Yes.
Clickbait.
right? But what they really what they really think about knee replacement or whatever it is. And so then they answer a bunch of those questions, and there's copy, which is mostly pulled from the interview, but it wouldn't be a transcript because it just doesn't work. The writer does have to kind of organize it and fill that out a little bit. And we hope that they don't have to go back to the SME, but sometimes they do, to just really kind of fill in the gaps. We're working to get better at that.
Okay.
And then we pull all the individual, obviously the short questions, and not only do we use them horizontally embedded in the articles, but then we're also using them on social media as vertical cuts. So we try to really we are creating months and months worth of content out of this one video shoot when we get to do it well.
Most of the clients we deal with want video, and they understand the benefit of it, but and I don't want to phrase this as they're afraid of it. To some extent, though, they're afraid of the commitment.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know the finished product, what the quality that has to be useful. In other words, the minimum viable product versus full production.
Mm-hmm.
What we need to figure out is some way to help them understand that video can be a nimble medium, that they can use it, and that for different story levels, there can be different quality levels as well.
Right.
Is that something that I would imagine that a healthcare environment gives you a lot of opportunities for different levels of quality? Are you finding that to be true?
Yeah, it does. And to be honest, one of the things that I have sort of been wrestling with is how to change the culture and the expectations that there is a middle ground. And I'm a big fan of the middle ground. So it doesn't mean, I think a lot of the doctors, the experts are reasonably nervous. They say, I don't want to be like pointing at the green screen in the background, and I don't want to be in my car. And although I wish some of them would, frankly, because we know we have data, I have some numbers here, I think 87% of the participants in this 2024 study said they were seeking health-related content on YouTube. And the numbers on social media are the same. And I actually think we have a real responsibility to be out there. And it's something that I am constantly advocating for in our organization, showing the data, showing the importance of our, I think we have a responsibility, again, to be out there. We've kind of abdicated that space to some of the less reliable people who have commercial interests, whether they're selling a supplement or selling a program or whatever. And I think, there's a little bit of maybe snobbery or something where some of the, especially at an academic medical center, some of the experts feel like maybe it's below them or it's not the right place. And to make the case that they would never treat a patient that way, right? If a patient came in with a quote dumb question or
Right.
didn't understand something, they would explain it in their language, right?
Right.
And this is the same thing. I just went to this seminar at the Coop Institute, this named after C. Everett Koop, and one of the things they mentioned was articles he had written for Reader's Digest, right? And it just made me think like he understood at that time, right? That you have to talk to people where they are, and understand too. I think, there's the sort of department heads who maybe feel like maybe it's inappropriate from a brand perspective. There's also the day-to-day frontline clinicians who say, I'm trying to just take care of my patients. I don't have time for this extra stuff. It's not my job description. And we had a really interesting conversation last week with a couple of them where what they realized was these are their patients, right? And what's happening is their patients are coming in with negative impacts on their health outcomes because they are, either taking something they shouldn't be, or, we've seen articles about negative impacts of supplements, right? There's been issues with that. There's been, when they're not having the appropriate tests to know if they're the right supplements, right? Or, again, vaccine hesitancy in pregnant moms, these kinds of issues. So I think we're gradually starting to convince people of the importance.
Yeah.
I think the younger doctors, interns, residents that are coming out really understand this and have lived this life themselves, right? I mean, I have an 18-year-old daughter, and I've been doing this job for basically her whole life. And she still will go to TikTok first and look at what some influencer says instead of like asking our nurse practitioner or, going and talking with a healthcare provider who understands these things. So, as these influencers continue to grow and as the responsibility of the health system and the providers grows to work with them and make sure that those proper messages are being put out, what do you feel like the role for video in healthcare marketing will look like in the next couple of years compared to, say, the past 10 years?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I have learned not to predict too far in advance because all of the world of social media and internet content, right? One of the things we know is it is constantly changing. And it's actually what kind of makes it exciting and interesting for me is like just trying to stay a half a step ahead all the time. But I think, number one, I was talking to my social media manager about this today, and she was saying, just being able to have the face of that provider out there in a world where there's a real lack of trust is really valuable. I think we also need to educate people about what channels they are getting their information from, because with AI fakes, this is happening now. I know, from the world of wellness, I know several wellness podcasters that are quite well known who have had their likeness imitated by AI and put into a quote, a pretend interview where they are, advertising a product which they have no interest in and have never used, right? So I think part of the message there is if you're following that podcaster, watch them on their channel. If you want to know reliable healthcare information from medical experts, go to the hospital channels. Because if you're seeing their experts elsewhere, we're getting into a world where you can't be completely sure of what that is. So that's one piece of the future. The other piece, I think, is that as of today, the impacts of AI on search, I sort of think of it in three ways. I think there's the impact on the algorithms themselves, right? Because, Google and all those places are trying to they're trying to avoid some of the AI slop in their results. So that, as we know, they're prioritizing things like Reddit and YouTube right now because those are a little bit more, seem safer at the moment. And that will probably change soon, right? But then the second way that it's changing is how people search, right? Because whether they are searching Google or they're using Perplexity or something else, they're getting, as you know, these snippets, these short answers that answer their question, and there's no click-through resulting from that. And then the third way is just how it actually impacts the people themselves, right? Like Mark Schaefer's new book about how our customers are actually changing and how they think is changing. So there are these three kind of categories, but I think that video is definitely a place where at the moment, I feel like we have an opportunity, particularly right now. YouTube videos are coming up in Google results. We've had some of our best success, not with people searching on YouTube, but with people searching on Google and being fed to a YouTube video. So I feel like it is going to become more and more important, both, for all the reasons, because at the moment, the algorithms seem to be prioritizing it, because the way people consume media is changing. They like to see things by video. With the AI transcriptions and scraping, oftentimes you will actually get sent directly to the part of the YouTube video that answers your specific question instead of the whole video. So at least at the moment, I don't see that changing. I did want to circle back. I know, Stu, you asked me about the multiple levels of production, and I don't know if I answered that, if you still wanted to hit that.
Well, yeah, and it does come back to a couple things. First off, user-generated content is a fact. People prefer that and they trust it more. And then there's the corporate version of user-generated content, which they kind of trust, but kind of look at and say, yeah, production's a little too high quality here for that.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's a good dividing line that says, the organization needs to have this message out there. They want to make it something that is sincere.
Mm.
How do you think that where's the line that crosses that makes it just too far to go to make it look like we just gave the camera to a patient
Right.
and let them wander the halls?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I don't know if this is going to answer the question exactly, but we wanted to get out vaccine messaging particularly for pediatrics.
Mhm.
And we decided to take two texts simultaneously. One was to record some of our, pediatric leadership in the studio, because we felt like that sort of felt like the official message from our health network. And we wanted that to be out there, that this is a sort of like approved official message. But we also took what we call our DIY kit, which is basically an iPhone and a microphone, into one of the pediatrician's offices and shot. We had our social media person sit in the patient's seat and had the pediatrician sort of like, spin over on their chair and, put their stethoscope around their shoulder and then just talk to you as they would talk to a patient. And so we did both of those because we felt like we know that people trust their pediatricians, and we wanted them to feel like their pediatrician is talking to them. And we also felt like there was a place to say, like, this isn't just this one doctor's opinion. This is our official organizational perspective. So we ended up doing both of those in that case.
Okay, very good. And thank you for that. That's actually quite clarifying. The other thing that we found, and you have touched on this, is the value of video and social media. And there's definitely a difference between the amount of video somebody's going to watch on TikTok versus the amount they're going to watch on YouTube. It has nothing to do with, in my opinion, with attention span. It's experience span. I'm on TikTok. I'm moving through things quickly. I'm snacking on information. I'm not having a feast on this stuff. To that end, have you found anything in your experience where you have put something on a platform like TikTok that you felt hit the qualification as far as brevity, but was too overproduced? Was there some drawback to the production value that may have impacted the success of it?
It's a great question. I'm going to answer in two parts.
Okay.
First, I'm going to say about your sort of question about the length. There was a great piece by Andy Crestodina, which I'm sure you guys saw, about sort of the difference in the mindset and the mental space of somebody who's searching for an answer, right? They go to Google and they want to know an answer and they are kind of in a hurry and they just want to get right to the point, versus someone who is on social media and they're more in a sort of like, I want to be entertained. I don't really know what I'm looking for. I'm sort of just scrolling along. So it's a different kind of mental space. And I think that supports what you were saying, Stu, is like, it's not that people don't have a long enough attention span. It's just not what they're looking for in that platform. So we have not had the capacity yet. And we actually talked about this today, my social media manager and I, we haven't really had the capacity to start creating content at a channel specific level. We really want to. We know it's important, but at this point we're trying to be efficient. And so we have built a presence on TikTok, but it has been completely with repurposed content. So we're not really able to say like, what are the production values and how do they impact this piece? Because we're just sort of saying like, we have this stuff. We know we want to be there. Let's put the stuff there. And eventually we'll start creating specifically for it. The one thing that I think people might find surprising is one of our big hits was a knee replacement, a video about knee replacement. And it was from one of these video FAQ engine series where we created all this cascading content from the one video. And first of all, there's a meme, and you can look it up, which is that feeling when knee replacement is tomorrow. I can't explain it to you. It's a bizarre meme on TikTok. But what was most interesting to us was, yes, this video benefited from association with that meme. But when you looked, even though the TikTok audience overall is much younger than the Facebook audience, the audience on that specific post was much larger than we would have gotten on any other channel and was mostly 45 and over. And even like a higher percentage was 55 and over. So there are older people there and maybe there's not content for them. So we think there's also a big opportunity there. Yeah. And honestly, I can tell you, all these questions you're asking about like sort of like level of production values and how important they are, I think are really important questions, but I don't think I or you or anybody else can answer them because one, it's person to person. And so depending on your audience, you just have to try. And frankly, it changes, right? I mean, think about ourselves and even our consumption habits have changed so much probably in the last 2 years. So I really am a firm believer in you just have to be comfortable trying things and adapting and trying things and adapting, and that's never going to stop. It's not like we're going to figure it out and be done.
Yeah. And I kind of keyed in on that because it is the one concern I hear mostly from clients when we recommend doing more video. We don't have the time for good production. We need to have a single tone and voice across our productions and so on. And I think that's more dependent on the intended platform than the actual thing you're doing in the moment. Sometimes, I mean, again, the TikTok versus YouTube look can be different. The other thing that they run into is the perceived difficulty of editing. They don't have a lot of staff that would be good at that, and it can be a little daunting. By the way, I am going to take a little bunny trail here. I typed into Google that feeling, and I only got that far before the meme came up. But because of my age, what came up was the Grinch knee surgery tomorrow meme explained on Forbes. So it didn't go to TikTok for somebody who's 60 some years old. It went to explaining it to the 60-year-old what it meant. So,
I'm in the same category. I get we learn slang from NPR and it's way too late by the time you're hearing it there. Yeah.
Okay. I guess if there's any advice on something about the end use of the video. I've heard you say several times you're talking about a video, a FAQ. You're talking about something that is a place to go to as a video reference. Is that something you came into when you took the job, or is it something you've been building since you've had the job?
So it's something I've been building, kind of like what we talked about in the beginning, this service journalism concept, this idea that, we know that there are questions people have, and we believe that we can answer them from a medically reliable point of view. And that is the same sort of strategy, whether we're doing that in our blog or on YouTube or in social media. So, it is something that I've developed and haven't taken nearly as far as I'd like to. I did just want to address really quickly the point you made about people's concern about the complications of editing. I mean, truthfully, yes, being a good videographer, even for social media with your iPhone, and being a good editor is hard. It's a skill. And so is writing. And so I think we don't say, oh, we're not going to write anything on our website because we would have to have a good writer for that, right? We hire a good writer. And I think there is still a tendency to just think like, oh, anybody can do it, or it's too hard because anybody can't do it. And it's actually, there are people that are good at it. There are people that practice it. There are people that learn it. And those are the people we need to hire if we want to do that kind of work.
Thank you. That's a good conclusion to that one. I appreciate that. Mariah?
Yeah, we always like to end these conversations, Marion, with a little piece of advice for up and coming marketers. So if you had maybe 2 to 3 key takeaways that you'd give to a healthcare marketing team that wants to create more video, create more blog, podcast content, anything like that, what would you say?
Oh my gosh, this is a hard one. I think whenever you can, get a meeting with the SME, with the marketing leader, with the department head, and explain to them. I have this, my Venn diagram, which has the 3 circles, and the one circle is their goal, right? Are they trying to increase volume, or are they trying to increase brand awareness? The second circle is resources or opportunities, right? So like, is there a new procedure? Do we have a writer that's good at it? Do we have a videographer? All the resources involved. Do we have a good SME? And then the third circle is interest, right? Is there an audience for this, and do they care about it? And the middle of those 3 circles is the sweet spot, right? And so I would say having that opportunity to have those meetings and say like, yep, we're going to make a video that's not exactly what you're asking for. It might be about the question that your procedure is the answer to, right? It might be about something that people are interested in, and that we can show you data to show that people are asking these questions on YouTube, on social media, more than they are in many cases on Google searches, on websites. And so just being able to have that conversation, come in with the data, come in with really explain it. And I've found when I can have a conversation, I can understand what they're trying to achieve, and I can help them see that this is a way, this isn't just something random or something sort of cute or new or chaotic. This is actually the best way to achieve the goals that they have.
Very good.
Yeah, I love that. That's perfect.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you so much for joining us, Marion. I can't wait to
This is so
see
much more
the
fun than my
next-
real job, you guys. I just want to sit around and nerd out all day.
You should come work with us. We're
Yeah.
nerds all day long, every day. Thanks for listening to Did I Say That Out Loud with Stu Eddins and Mariah Tang. Check out the show notes for more information about today's episode. And if you have any questions, concerns, or comments, hit us up anytime at staymates.com.